everybody and welcome. This is Alura. Today I want to talk with you all about the twin flames and even give you a little bit more information on my own personal experience. So the twin flames, that is a conversation that many people have a total misconception about. And I'm not trying to say that what I'm presenting to you here today is right or wrong. I'm just trying to give you a new perspective that you can listen to, and if you feel as though this makes sense, then it's up to you to choose whether you wish to believe in it or not. So in this, imagine a twin flames this way. Your soul's created and it's in a beautiful orb of light. And that orb divides into two. And each half will go on to its very own journey. It'll go to one location and the other will go to another reality, and both will get to have their experiences. So as they're having these experiences, their vibrations will change, of course, because as you're going through your journeys, you're adding and subtracting different life experience and different wisdom along the way. So the things that you no longer need, that'll fade away. It'll be a part of the Akashic records, but it'll be the dormant part. And then the things that do become who you are, they stay with you. Then you have many lessons that you may miss because realities such as, especially this one here on Earth, there are many distractions. We have media, trends, your peers, the different ideas throughout society, different teachings here, your upbringing, religion. All of that plays a big role on your understanding, the changes in your personality. And that's why I always say that, you may not be living according to what your higher soul wants you to be living to, because you yourself may be basing what you think you're meant to do in life or what the right direction is based on all of the elements around you. For an example, a very good example of this is that since 2012, everybody has wanted to become a light worker and wanted to become a psychic. And light work is done in so many different ways. You could be a light worker that's saving animals. You could be a light worker who's helping to nurse sick children. But everyone has come to the assumption that becoming a light worker has to be like hands-on healing and psychic information. And that's not always the case. So that's an influence because that's something that's become very trendy throughout society. Instead of really seeking deep within and through life experience and what the higher soul says to find out what you're really meant to do. So as you go through these journeys, you could go off course or you could very well stay on it. But the point is that both halves of that soul that started out at the same frequency, they may not be anymore. And that's more than likely the case with a majority of twin flames. So what happens is that as you're going through your journey, you're going to be learning one half of duality, your twin flame will learn the other. So while they're learning masculine, stern, logical lessons, and you may be learning being intuitive or compassionate, or vice versa. So it really depends on who you are, and it really has nothing to do with the gender either, because to be honest with you, you could be a female learning the masculine, logical application of wisdom, and your twin flame being a male could be learning the compassionate, intuitive version. And it flips. And you're going to be taking turns learning these different things throughout the duration of your journey. So throughout your journey, when you do meet up with your twin flame, what will happen is the two of you may not get along so very well. And that's because, of course, if you are learning something differently than your twin flame, then the communication is going to be off. So let's say you're the sensitive one and your twin flame is the logical masculine one, and you're trying to have a conversation and he just comes out and says, something that's very inconsiderate or very hurtful, and doesn't realize that he's come off that way because, he's masculine. That's why they say, men come from Mars, women come from Venus, because when you are in that logical aspect of thinking, it's very direct, very straightforward. Not a lot of emotions behind it. So to you, if you're a female and that's the scenario, you're going to feel hurt, and you may not really understand that the way it was said wasn't the way that it was meant. So there could be disagreements, debates, misunderstandings. And the more and more that happen, the more and more that relationship becomes chaotic. There could be, because of those reasons, that chaos in the past, from past lifetimes, you could bring that karma over with you into this lifetime. And that's going to add even more chaos to the relationship. And so, as you're both learning these two very different sides of duality, the point is that you eventually transcend the karma, you transcend your sides of duality, both of you having learned each side at different times, to where you'll finally come to an equal understanding. So you'll learn feminine and masculine throughout your lifetimes. Your twin flame will do the same, and eventually you'll both be back to that original vibration. And that's the twin flame reunification process. So that is the misconception, because everybody believes that this is Romeo and Juliet, the love of my life, and that is really not the case. So I've known a lot of twin flames that, they've had a lot of issues, a lot of troubles, throughout their relationships because of all of the many disagreements and misunderstandings that they've had. And it took a lot of life coaching to sit the couple down and talk to them, to get them to see eye to eye, to get them to understand each other's language. Because to listen to someone that's coming off a very direct and masculine versus having to cope with the reaction of being sensitive and emotional, that in itself needs understanding. So teaching them how to understand and listen from within to one another helped them to better that relationship. But still, you and your twin flame may have individual lessons that you're meant to learn along your path, and you may not be meant to be romantic in this life. Sometimes your flame will cross your path and, be there to be supportive or just to let you know that the tie is still there, but you may be fated to do something else. Now, I know a twin flame relationship where the relationship itself, it's very distracting, and it is, because it's full of passion, it's full of that heat because of all those arguments, and then the love. So you put that fire and that heat with the love, and it becomes fiery and passionate, and that becomes very distracting, because the twin flames will want to protect the relationship, they'll want to own each other, they'll want to possess it because it is the other half of themselves anyhow, and that keeps them back from learning many, many different things along their journey. So sometimes they'll choose to not be together in that lifetime as well. And that's usually when the person will end up with what's called a fated lover. A fated lover is someone that, you're destined to be with, the love of your life, and it's a good relationship because you don't have to worry about those twin flame relationship problems or, the lessons that particular dynamic between those two souls go through. So it's a rather pleasant relationship, and that's what you get instead, to give you the fulfillment and to also teach you, what you're going for, what you're working so hard for. Because when you say to yourself, well, a lot of drama with the twin flame, but this is what we're working hard towards. What I have with my fated lover is what we're working hard towards. So in all, it is a complicated relationship, but it's not hopeless, because if you and your twin flame have had issues or troubles and it's just not working out, then maybe it wasn't meant to be in this life, but the connection has drawn you together. Or perhaps, you're meant to learn something on your own and you feel your twin flame is holding you back from that. Whatever the case may be, it may be time to sit back and evaluate that and find other options. So let your twin flame go, If you love something, you let it go. If it comes back to you, it's yours, and the twin flame is yours. So you don't have to worry about, losing them ever. They will be back. If it's not in this lifetime, it'll be in the next, and who knows if it's not going to be even better, as long as you yourself are coping with your own lessons that you need to transcend. So my twin flame and I, now, I wouldn't say that I really have a twin flame, because for my soul, I've always been individual, working for, my creator. And coming into this world, before I came into this world, I always thought, it would be nice to have somebody that I could have children with and fall in love with. And so I manifested that, that thought within this lifetime. So meeting my twin flame, it was crazy, because we were sitting there, we were in a room with a bunch of friends that were mutual, and I remember that my focus had been on the group that I was with, but he was sitting way behind me, and I kept turning around and I could just feel his gaze on me. There was just something there, that caused us to lock eyes, and we would lock eyes. We would look so deeply into one another's eyes that it just felt like, we have to get over there to talk. So we started talking, and it was instant connection, Felt like I had known him forever. It was a wonderful feeling. It was a feeling of like having a very best friend and being able to tell this person anything in the world. And when I did, it was a feeling of, protection, trust, and loyalty. And I did have that within him. But unfortunately, my twin flames lessons continued well beyond any of my life's lessons, and it didn't work out. But that's okay, because I know that we fulfilled what we were meant to do in this lifetime. We were meant to have children, that's it. And I could hang on to the relationship. I could have hanged on to it for a very long time and, tried to keep it. But knowing that wisdom, you have to know when to let go. You have to know and be strong and say, you got to learn your own lessons, and you have to learn to allow the freedom of learning those lessons. You can't hold somebody back from their life lessons. Those life lessons are defining who that soul is going to be. So it's very selfish to want to keep somebody in your life when you see all the signs that it's just not meant to be beyond that point. So eventually, we did part ways, and things had grown worse in his life. And, I am so thankful to have my children here today. I really am. And they are the blessing that I've always longed for, because they became my best friends in his place. And while I'll never forget the passion of that relationship earlier on, I can say that being with him was very much like having a best friend, having a lover, having a protector, and a provider. So it was like everything all in one. But a lot of the karma, because again, you manifest the twin flame if you don't have one for yourself. Not everybody in the universe has a twin flame. And upon manifesting, this wasn't the first time, so we had some karma. He had a lot of karmic energy towards me. And I can remember that being with him, the energy was so intense. He would touch me and I would just kind of like swerve up, because I could feel the karma. It was like I knew all of the wrongs that he had done to me in the past. It was awful in those past lifetimes. And I could feel that. So I would, squirm, and I would just kind of like, reject him all the time. And it wasn't because I didn't love him. Like, I knew that I loved him, and I knew that, this was my best friend. This was my heart and soul. But I just felt, that this sign of feeling that way was trying to tell me that, it wasn't meant to go beyond, a certain level. So it didn't, and we parted ways, and here I am, and I'm living out my mission, and I'm learning all my lessons, and I'm so very happy in my life. But with this subject, having firsthand experience myself, and having worked with hundreds of other people in this situation, I've come to find that, many people, when they ask about the twin flame, they're asking sometimes about the wrong thing. Because many of the people that come to me for the readings, they don't realize the difference between twin flame and fated lover. And a twin flame is the opposite of your soul. So there's going to be some issues there while you're learning. You're reflecting off of one another. What most people are looking for are the fated lover. The fated lover is the love of your life. It's someone that you can have as your companion, and you get along, because like I said, those twin flame lessons aren't there to kind of get in the way. So I thought I would just give you, a little bit of information on the subject, because the twin flame is a powerful union. It is one of the most strongest. It is one of the most passionate, but it can be the most chaotic until you've transcended that duality and both of you are finally at that equal understanding once again. Because like I said, you're going through many different lessons in your journey, and that changes you how many times. Think of all the different characters that you've been in your past lifetimes. You haven't been the same person, all that way. So it leaves an effect on you, and it changes, how the two of you interact, especially if you have karma. So if you're looking for your twin flame, make sure that you know the difference between fated lover and twin flame, because that's going to help you know which direction you're going in when you're doing your seeking, especially when you're out there actually doing the real looking, not just psychically or with readings. You want to make sure that you know which one out of the two that you're going for, so that you can find the right signs and know what's really going to make you happy. Is finding your twin flame and going through all of those lessons going to make you happy? Some people it does. Some people, they're not ready. And maybe the fated lover is what they should have instead. So it's all up to what your higher self says, and it's all up to your soul contract. It's also up to, your twin flames, soul contract as to what's going to happen in this lifetime. So that would be the best place to start. And then looking into your twin flame afterwards will help give you some further information. But be willing to accept whatever the results are and to head down the path that is destined for you. I've had a lot of people that came for those twin flame readings, and some of their twin flames, didn't reincarnate in this cycle. Some of them met them, but they were on a totally different level. And somehow I'm the one, that gets blamed, but it's not my fault. I'm just the messenger, I'm just trying to show them, the importance of the relationship and what comes with it. You have to be willing to accept, what this lifetime has brought for you and to work with it as best as you can to grow and to learn, because that's really what it's about. Each one of you learning and growing, and that's how you're going to get to that ascension. So thank you so much for listening. I love you all so very much, and I hope you have a wonderful upcoming holiday season and year 2017.